Okay, YouTube, I've been trying this for like an hour now, so I probably look crazy, I probably sound crazy, whatever, but this is, I think, a video that's been in the works for probably the last 4-6 weeks, something like that. But, Jared Leto finally winning the Academy Award for his portrayal of a trans woman in Dallas Buyers Club kind of, I think, made everything sort of articulatable for me, if that's even a real word itself, where a lot of the criticism about Jared Leto has come out and said that he's not trans. So he's a cis white male playing a trans female on screen. And so I think that's sort of an unfair criticism because as an actor, you don't have to live in your everyday reality, day-to-day life as the character you portray on screen. I think it would be really hard to have that work out, especially if you're trying to have an actor play a poor person, or, anybody play Jean Valjean, who hasn't actually been, relentlessly hounded by the French police through 18th century France. Because that's how absurd the argument eventually becomes. What do you really expect of an actor? So then when people say things like, well, he didn't do enough research, he didn't try hard enough, he didn't authentically portray the experience, to me that really just seems like a slippery slope version of, well, he's just not trans. And so, to a lot of people, he represents everything that's wrong with kind of trans in the media. The fact that it is a cis white male playing this character who is this awful tokenization of the trans experience itself, where like the character is basically comedic relief, like while the story is based on a true story, or the movie is based on a true story, like this character never existed in real life. So they created this character, they made them trans, but the directors, the producers, the writers, nobody really bothered to do the research to say, is this authentic, is this accurate, whatever. Meanwhile, you have somebody like Janet Mock in the media, and I think she's fantastic. Like, everything that Jared Leto isn't, like, she is. She's beautiful. She's lived the experience. She's articulate. She is basically kind of this perfect trans ideal, and I think that's why she's been elevated, to some extent to the status she has. And to be completely honest, I think she's lived up just about as good as any person could to those types of expectations. And so when she's on Piers Morgan, all the subtitles read things like, for those of you who aren't aware of this whole fiasco, things like, oh, she used to be a boy or used to be a man, and this is what the nature of his interview focuses on. And she says that, well, no, I didn't used to be a boy, I didn't go from male to female, like, I always identified as her, like, I never was a male. That's the point she's making, and I think that's one that everybody in the trans community, or a large part of the trans community at least, can identify with. This sort of, I always was female, I always identified that way, maybe it took me longer to realize it and say it and do something about it, but that's always been who I am. But in the interview, she's like, I don't want to talk about those things, like, I want to focus on my book, I want to focus on my advocacy, I want to talk about all these other things outside of the fact that I am trans. And so to me, it seems like these are two very kind of incongruous concepts, even though the people who are sort of blasting Leto are the same people who would be blasting Morgan for what he did to Mock. Like, instead of focusing on what trans is or isn't, Jared Leto isn't trans enough. Janet Mock is not even trans by her kind of own seeming, definition. Why does it matter how they identify or who they really are, because that's essentially what we're saying about trans identities. Yet it's not okay for a non-trans actor to play a trans role in a movie. And I don't know, the positions just seem inconsistent to me. And it's like, if, you know, like, I don't know.